Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari for the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
It's so depressing. It sounds so much better. Every single time he talks, it sounds so much better than my voice.
I disagree. It's just different. It's just different energies. It's like we can't both have the same, timbre to our voice. I don't know what the word is, but it has to be some contrast.
Bringing another awesome voice to the episode today as we are doing a 1 through 40 mock draft for you guys. So we're starting at 1. We'll go through it fairly quickly, but we'll break down all of those picks, eventually get to 37 for the Detroit Pistons and carry on all the way to 40. Right now, just Stephen Gillespie from No Ceilings. Later, Maxwell Baumbach will be joining us as well, but Stephen's going to hold it down for the first 25 picks. How's it going, Stephen?
Bryce, Omari, I'm doing great. Thank y'all so much for having me back on this year. Big fan of y'all, just as people, but I'm glad that I get to be on here and talk a little bit of basketball as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're not quite as much NBA draft content in the Pistons world this year because they don't have a first-round pick, but we will still bring the fan base something they can enjoy. We're going to do the whole thing. So in complete transparency, me, Steven, and Max, we already picked 1 through 25. We're just going to present those to you right now, and then we'll dive a little bit more into 26 through 40 a little bit later. So for the first time, we are going to screen share up here on the Pistons Pulse YouTube channel. This is a first, and we are using the Fanspo mock draft because of course we are, because whose big board did they use? Our guy Stephen Gillespie's big board over at No Ceilings doing big time things. So we are going to start off right here. And the first pick of the draft went to the Dallas Mavericks and they selected Cooper Flagg. Stephen, I'll give you the floor here. Real quick thoughts on Cooper Flagg going to the Mavericks.
Most disrespected player in the draft community because we all agree he's awesome and we want to talk about everybody else. In all seriousness, though, Cooper is a great fit for the Mavericks. He's shown that he has far more offensive upside in his lone year in college basketball this year, which really propels him not only to be the number 1 pick in this year's draft, but one of the best number 1 prospects in several years, dating back to Zion Williamson, potentially Anthony Davis.
All right, so going on to number 2, the San Antonio Spurs with this pick, and we will not go against consensus. We selected Dylan Harper. 0-2, you were up. Dylan Harper, what are your thoughts? How much have you watched film on Dylan Harper to the San Antonio Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched, a little bit of all these guys just so I could get myself to this as competently as possible. But I mean, it's just hard not to watch Dylan Harper and just see the outline of a guy who could be an offensive hub in the league for a long time. Really, the only question mark is this jumper. And it's not really a question mark. It's just, will he be an okay shooter and elite shooter? But just the handle, the footwork, the playmaking, the size, there's a lot to like. And I think that's the Spurs, ironically, are not a great fit for him just because they already have 2 guys who kind of fit that mold. But I think he's good enough that you can't pass on him.
I agree. This is probably a good point to mention that we did not allow trades in this mock draft, at least up until 25. We also will not trade up during the Pistons portion of the draft, but we will talk about it a little bit more. So here at 3, this may surprise some people. I know there's some stuff out there, but we are going to stay to this board here, and we took Ace Bailey to the Philadelphia 76ers. I know there's a lot out there right now, some of the workout stuff, the maturity stuff, whatever. I think the talent is still there. I think the upside is still there. Steven, quick thoughts on Ace Bailey and any concerns you may have taking him this high.
The concerns don't have to do with the fact that he's been in headlines for some kind of precarious reasons. The issues with me come down to the handle not being very tight. He's very high-waisted, doesn't have a lot of bend. For a scorer, he had real efficiency issues playing next to a big organizer. But the defense is there. You see the outlines of a real big stretch 3, stretch 4 kind of combo forward in the NBA. So while there are concerns, both kind of on and off the court, in terms of representation, as a kid, he's nothing but great reviews for his part. You have the potential of an offensive star on your hands with an Ace Bailey.
Love it. Number 4 is the Charlotte Hornets, and we took VJ. No, I do not want to make a trade. I want to draft VJ Hedgecomb to the Charlotte Hornets, and I think he's a really nice fit there. I think he would slot perfectly between LaMelo Ball and a Brandon Miller. I think that they should be sprinting to the podium if Ace is off the board at 3, whether Philly or I think we all would agree that if we really had time to do so, we could talk potential trade up there. But since there were no trades, Ace goes 3, VJ Edgecombe 4. That puts the Utah Jazz on the board at number 5. This was actually the first time we went to the Twitter poll, Steven, because me, you, and Max all kind of had different answers here. And the Twitter poll came out with an answer of Trey Johnson. O2, I want to get your thoughts on Trey Johnson, a bucket getter out of Texas.
Yeah, I think he's just a fun player. Obviously, one of the best shooters in the draft. He's a guy that brings real size to the position, and just the way he's able to heat up and take up games. It's just he's just another guy in the draft where you just watch him and it's that's a guy that's going to have a long NBA career. I don't know how high his ceiling is, but I feel like he's got a really high floor just because he could slide in and long term. I don't know if you'll compare to maybe a Contavious Caldwell Pope or somebody along those lines. Maybe he has more upside than that, but I just love his skill set. I love his game. I would feel very good drafting him pretty much anywhere between 3 and 7.
Steven, real quick, upside on Trey Johnson, especially on the offensive end. Is this a potential number 1 scorer? Does he has on-ball juice? Is he going to be mostly an off-ball player?
I think he's got some off-ball juice right off the rip. That's the safety with him, is that you feel very good about him as a floor spacer. I feel like the handle was really underrated because he can get himself into some tough spots and come up with some really tough conversions from outside. The concerns come from the interior scoring, but if he can figure some things out in the mold of a Tyler Hero, a Devin Booker, or Bradley Beal, someone along those lines, you do have potentially someone who could be a number 1 or number 2 option on the offensive end for your team.
Love it. Okay, we are up to the Washington Wizards at number 6. This one I would be interested to see what Wizards fans will think about this. I've been yelled at by Wizards fans about not taking upside players, but this is a really good player, and maybe there is some upside. So we decided on the Duke wing, Con Knipple. Steven, tell the viewers why Wizards fans should be excited about Con Knipple at 6.
Well, Pistons fans can tell you this firsthand too, but once you add elite floor spacing to a young team, this opens up the floor for your young core to continue to grow and do better. If you don't believe me, I believe I've heard Bryce say the same thing on several different occasions. But there is upside because he's very young. You're talking about a one-and-done prospect who showed great offensive upside. He plays hard. There's defensive upside with him. If he can commit and really dig in on that end, you could have a legit offensive dynamo with someone who won't be a traffic cone on the defensive end. So that's why he would be a great fit for the young talent with Washington.
Love it. So we are up to number 7 with the New Orleans Pelicans. And here we went with another guard in Kasparas Yakichonis out of Illinois. I think a guy that can play a little bit of both positions in the backcourt. It's got good size. I think he can pass the ball. We'll see what the shot is. I've had scouts question the defense to me, which I understand, but Kasparas is just a really, really nice player. I think this would be interesting for the Pelicans, who have some changeover maybe coming in their backcourt with DeJounte Murray coming off an injury, CJ McCollum on the last year of his deal, which leads us to number 8. And the Brooklyn Nets. I will say again, if we were doing trade-up situations, I think Brooklyn is definitely a team to watch. And we went with a guy that was a fast riser in this class. I was a little bit slow on it. No ceilings, was about as early as anybody. That is Carter Bryant, the wing forward out of Arizona. O2, how much Carter Bryant film did you get in? What are your thoughts on Carter?
Yeah, again, he's just another guy that you watch, and it's that's a high-level NBA player for a long time. He kind of reminds me of Otto Porter in some ways, and I know Otto Porter, I feel like never really lived up to what he could have been just because of injuries. But when he was healthy, he was just a really elite Swiss Army knife. Like there's probably a better modern example than Otto Porter. That's just the one I like that comes to my mind first. But like just love Carter Bryant's game. He's going to be a defensive playmaker at the next level. I love the shot. Great size. Like you could pick him, and he's the type of wing that seems like all teams want just because of that versatility in the playoffs.
All right, so after the Nets, the Raptors on the clock at number 9, and I'm real interested to get Steven's thought. We sent them Common Malawach, the big out of Duke. Steven, your thoughts on Common, who I think some people have close to top 5. He drops, quote unquote, to number 9 for our mock. What are your thoughts on Common?
I'm kind of a little bit all over the place with him throughout the draft cycle. I've kind of landed with him at 13th on my big board because he does give you tremendous size, and you can't teach that size, right? He gives you defensive upside where he kind of platooned the back line of a very talented Duke defense. Offensively, there's a lot of conversations as to he might be able to shoot someday. I honestly don't care if he can or can't. I want him to do big man things well. My biggest concerns with him are the consistency of his hands, and also does he have that level of nasty to really give it to other NBA players? That's where I'm a little bit more hesitant with a Kaman Malawach.
Love it. Okay, so the next one threw a little bit of a wrinkle in our mock because we had done this a few days ago, and then Kevin Durant decided to get traded to the Houston Rockets, and the number 10 pick was part of that. We discussed it this morning. We decided we were comfortable staying with our selection and keeping things as is. So this is not the Houston Rockets at number 10. This is the Phoenix Suns. And we kept Cedric Coward as the pick for the Suns. Steven, I'm going to go back to you on this one. Quick thoughts on Cedric Coward.
Yeah, number 9 player on my board. Love him to pieces. I mean, just a traditional 3-and-D wing prospect with the potential to get better. I mean, we were robbed to only having 6 games of him this year. Everywhere he's gone, every step of his journey, he's been an elite floor spacer. He has toughness where he can back players down. He's a mismatch hunter. And then defensively, you're looking at a guy with Bryce, like a 7'2" wingspan, standing at like 6'6" in tennis shoes. I mean, this is a basketball player created in a lab to me, and I would be super pumped. I know that Phoenix has needs at the point guard and at the center position. If you draft for need when there's a clear-cut talent, that's where you continue to draft where you're drafting now, right? So I would go with a clear-cut talent in Cedric Coward.
Love it. Number 11 is going to be the Portland Trailblazers. Really fun pick here. Some people may go like, man, don't they have enough bigs already? But I think we anticipate the big room to clear out at least a little bit. So we took Derek Queen for the Portland Trailblazers. O2, your thoughts on Derek Queen, a really interesting big freshman out of Maryland?
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use, is interesting. I think obviously he's one of the most skilled players in the draft. You just look at his scoring bag, like you look at especially the playmaking at his size, I think you could probably envision him, like especially if the handle tightens, like having maybe like a Julius Randle type impact. And I think the issue with those types of players is that they're kind of like tweeners on defense. So you may have to account for Derek Queen in other ways. Not that I think he's a bad defender. It's just, he's a little undersized for the 5. Does he have the speed for the 4? So interesting pick right there. But just to get a player that on some level is going to be very productive and has a chance to be some type of engine on the offense, that does give you upside there. And I'll like his game. It's just for him, I think it's going to be very dependent on fit with whatever team he's on.
Love it. We got a little bit of a run on bigs here as number 12, the Chicago Bulls, maybe the heir apparent to Nikola Vucevic. We take Thomas Sorber, another big out of the DMV. He's a freshman from Georgetown. Steven, give us a scout on Thomas Sorber.
Yeah, he's one of these guys that he doesn't have the Kamal Malawach type measurements in terms of height, but he is a great rim protector. He showed that the entire season at Georgetown, so that he can do the defensive things well. He also moves really well on the defensive end, a big steals guy at his position as well. There are people who think that he might be able to shoot. I project him to be a better shooter personally than a Kamal Malawach. And then offensively, one thing that the NBA tells us is that they value big men to do more than ever in the history of the NBA. He can extend the play. He can make a couple dribbles and make the sharp pass. I like him just as an overall talent on both ends of the floor.
Love it. All right. Number 13, the Atlanta Hawks. The big men continue as they take the young, raw Jan Bérenger out of France. He goes to Atlanta again. This is a team. This is a really good fit, in my opinion, in terms of playing with Trae Young, the type of bigs this team needs. Onyeka Okongwu, they can continue to give him some leash and figure out what he is while bringing Bérenger along a little bit slower off the bench. So I really like this fit, not only for the Hawks, but also for Jan Bérenger. The Hawks are a team that maybe you watch out for trying to trade up for a common Malawach, depending on where he goes. We are going to stay with the big at number 14 with the San Antonio Spurs, who have already taken Dylan Harper. This big is a little bit different, Steven. No, let's go to O2. Let's stay in Michigan. We'll make the Michigan State grad talk about the Michigan Wolverine. The San Antonio Spurs are taking Danny Wolf, O2. Your thoughts?
Yeah, like again, just another very skilled big. Centers who could pass like he can, who could space the floor like he can maneuver around the rim. You could pretty much plug him, play him at the 5 and like trust, like kind of like Derek Queen, that he's going to be a positive contributor out there, even though he's a different type of player from Derek Queen. Just a fun player, honestly. I'd be curious to see like how that manifests in the NBA, like especially on defense, but like you just watch him on offense, just like, yeah, like we could definitely find some sort of use here.
Steven, real quick, do you think Danny Wolf has to, how much do you think his split is between the 5 and the 4 in the NBA?
I'd give him probably 55-45 split between the 4 and the 5. I think he could toggle back and forth between both.
Love it. Let's talk about another guy who may toggle back and forth between both. We're picking for the recently crowned NBA champions of the 24-25 season, like they need any more talent. The Oklahoma City Thunder take another very interesting prospect, interesting skill set, Colin Murray Boyles, the sophomore out of South Carolina. Steven, give us the scout on Colin Murray Boyles.
Defensive playmaker, despite his size. He's all over the court. He can block, he can steal, he can keep people off of their line while maintaining his. He's a tenacious rebounder. He is a great positional playmaker. He experimented with shooting a little bit more this year than he did as a freshman, despite him still as a sophomore being freshman age. Look at how his age compares with a Derek Queen. So you're still getting a young man with high upside in a perfect spot in Oklahoma City, who likes to play small in some of their units anyway. He could still give you a lot of what you're looking for on defense, on the glass, and on offense with his playmaking.
Love it. CMB, really interesting player. I think at 15, this is great value for him. I have him higher on my board than this by a handful of spots.
Same.
Number 16, the Memphis Grizzlies are on the board, and we took wing out of Colorado State. He played a little bit of like point guard at Colorado State. I think he'll transition into more of like an off ball that can do on ball things, second side creator. But Nick Clifford is going to Memphis. Feel like this really fits kind of what they value, what they do. I think Neek's going to be a good two-way player. I think he's going to defend. I think Neek can knock down shots necessary to what he will be asking the NBA. And again, gives you a little bit of upside with the amount of on-ball reps he had at Colorado State. The Wizards are back on the clock. They could Knippel with the number 7 pick. Here, they are going to go a little bit more size. Asa Newell, the freshman out of Georgia. Steven, back to you on Asa Newell going to the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, he's going to be an interesting fit because he's a combo forward by nature. Georgia was a strange kind of context for him. But if you look at the Montverde film, I mean, you got a guy who is a good playmaker between the kind of maybe 3, 4, 5 in the NBA, depending on how his handle develops. And I think, too, long-term, that his three-point shooting is really going to be the swing skill for him. So you keep that floor spacing open for a young, developing, ascending Anthony Edwards. You could put him in there with lineups with Julius Randle as well. And still, you don't have to worry about the spacing if they do decide to keep a Rudy Gobert, pending on trade scenarios that may be lurking out there.
So I realized I skipped a pick. So real quick here, when we see the final, this should have been Noah Essengay to the Wolves. We'll come back to that in a second. and then the Wizards taking Asa Newell at 18. So we will go Essengay here, and those picks will just be flipped. O2, have you gotten any chance with Noah Essengay?
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect. I like his size and athleticism. He's probably a guy who's going to project more as a 4 long term, but given how young he is, maybe he can bulk up. I think he's probably one of the guys in the draft who's probably more of a project in some ways, but I also just think, well, for one, I'm always a fan of guys who are young, and he's young, and I think just seeing what he could do on defense, you can buy into the long-term upside with him.
Love it. All right. Now up at number 19, and the Brooklyn Nets have played this board perfectly, drafting Carter Bryant at number 8, just waiting. And instead of taking him at number 8, at number 19, they are able to select the point guard freshman out of Oklahoma, Jeremiah Fears. Steven, I'm sure this will be a pick that we hear a lot about. We see a lot of Jeremiah Fears top 10. Why does he fall to 19 in our mock?
Because there's only a handful of teams within the top 10, Bryce, that truly need him and what he brings at his position. A lot of people that you talk to will say if he falls outside of 7, 8, 9, that range, you could see a free fall. And he's not the only prospect that kind of fits that same descriptor there. But there's a lot of upside. Despite not being a great vertical athlete, he's very twitchy, very zoomy out there on the floor. He sees the floor well. He's got a high steal percentage, which is typically a good indicator of pro success. High usage for a guy that was very, very young, playing in one of the most athletic conferences in all of college basketball. Needs to work on the shot, especially off of the bounce, but there's enough there to where you can see some real high-end upside. Him falling at 18 to Brooklyn is a coup.
I love it. Real quick, do you think he could be in play at number 10 with the Suns?
I think so. I think that he would be a name that you can look out for, as well as some of the other big men that we were talking about earlier.
Love it. All right, number 20, the Miami Heat are on the clock, and they are going to take Walter Clayton Jr. O2, I think you have some thoughts on Walter Clayton Jr. I'll let you rock with this one.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting a lot of the prospects who you just watch and you just know that he's going to be a good NBA player for a long time. He's such a great shooter. You look at the playmaking and the ball handling. Really the only issue is just that he's one of the smaller guards in the draft. If he were 6'4", I think you're talking about a clear-cut lottery guy. So to get him this late in the first round, I think you can feel really good about that. Maybe if I draw the comparison, I go with a Darius Garland type, if you really buy the playmaking. But I just like his game. I think he's going to be good for a long time.
Love it. All right, number 21 will be the Utah Jazz. And with him still on the board, this just makes too much sense. Jaeger Dimon will go to the Utah Jazz. This is another one where I think a lot of people are going to have Jaeger higher. I know for me, I'm interested what he ends up being as a player. I have some questions about the on-ball creation if he's not using a ball screen. People will say, well, then you transition him to the wing. What does that look like? Does he knock down shots? Does he have the mentality to change that? I'm not saying in a negative way. I'm just saying it's hard to play with the ball in your hands your whole life and then go say, hey, go play in the corner and cut and do all of those things. So I'm a touch lower on Jaeger. He goes to 21 in our mock to the Utah Jazz, which brings up the Atlanta Hawks yet again. And they took Jan Beringer with their first selection. Here they get another young prospect, the freshman out of Illinois, Stephen Will Riley. What is the pitch for Will Riley?
For those who like him, it's that he is big and he's a playmaker with a lot of feel. He is a guy who, when he puts on strength, if he does, he will project to be a solid defender. He's very competitive despite his slight frame, and he'll compete on the glass. He'll take up the tough assignments on the defensive end too. The problems come with how his frame makes him NBA ready right off the rip. And is he going to be a good enough shooter to make all the other aspects of his game really worth the while?
Love it. Number 23. This was the Indiana Pacers pick that was traded to get their 2026 first round pick back from the New Orleans Pelicans. That would be fun to discuss at this point in time after what happened in Game 7, which, hopefully Tyrese Halliburton is doing okay and has a quick recovery. But here, we decided to give the New Orleans Pelicans a player that, who could use? The Indiana Pacers. But I understand the trade from the Pacers side as well. We took Ryan Cockbrenner to go in and compete at the center position with Yves Missi, the big from last season. Cockbrenner, a big-time defensive stopper and rim protector. I'm sure Pistons fans are hoping that maybe he was a name that could fall into trade-up range, maybe even slip into the second round. He does not in this mock. He goes 23 to the New Orleans Pelicans. The Thunder back up again at 24. I don't know how they're going to fit all these players on their roster, but they are going to take Hugo Gonzalez. Steven, you take this one for us. Hugo Gonzalez, wing out of Spain.
So Hugo is actually used to playing behind a lot of talented NBA type players in Real Madrid right now. So he's perfectly fine riding the pine and continuing to develop. But he has a great frame, good size. One of the more deceptive, like NBA-ready athletes within this class. If you look outside of the Real Madrid construct, if you look at exhibitions with some of his draft peers, he's dominated, great ball handler, good shooter, good decision maker, and is really good at moving off of the ball and getting aggressive cutting to the basket. So there's a lot of raw potential with a Hugo Gonzalez coming into the NBA. He has the time to develop into being the perfect version of himself in Oklahoma City.
Love it. And to finish this off before we go to break and then get into 26 to 40, we have on the board the Orlando Magic. And of course, we will send this one to our guy, O2, because I am missing, there he is. He gets to talk about a Michigan State Spartan, Jace Richardson.
Yeah, again, just a really fun player and a guy kind of like Walter Clayton, where if he were a little bit bigger, you're talking about a guy who would get much more significant attention in the lottery range. But I like just the way he gets downhill, I think is extremely impressive, especially for his size. Like he's got great footwork, like great touch, great balance, pretty much everything you want in a downhill guard. But with that, he also shot the three really well, and shot more threes as the year went on. As like Izzo got a better feel for his game, and Jay showed that he could do it. So the playmaking, like I think he's a great decision maker with the ball too. Like whenever I caught Michigan State, like I just like everything about his game. I think he's a guy again that could have a long career. But yeah, really the only knock on him is like he's just a 6'3" here, but I don't think he measured like in at 6'3". But again, I like his game. I think he's gonna have a long career.
All right, so that gets us through the first 25 picks. We will be back with picks 26 through 40 right after this. All right, so that is laying it out. We are going to alternate between the four of us as we go through. So real quickly, some names on the board. We have Nolan Traore. We have Liam McNeely. We have Rasheer Fleming, Pistons fans. We have Noah Pinda, West Davenport. We have Maxime Renaud, Ben Saraf, Drake Powell. Some really interesting names left here. We are going to go to Steven first. So these are going to be back-to-back Nets picks. Steven, who are you taking with the first Brooklyn Nets selection in the second round?
Yeah, so with the Nets taking Carter Bryant, they get their 3-and-D guy. With Jeremiah Fears, they get their high upside ball handler. I want to give them another shot at a floor spacer on the perimeter. Although he wasn't a great floor spacer this year, when he played at Mont Verne, he shot over 46% on his threes, that being Liam McNeely. So I think that they have the opportunity here to kind of not necessarily need to have him contribute with all of the other prospects that they already have taken ahead of him. But if he hits and if he is a consistent floor spacer, we've talked about this, Bryce, adding floor spacers to the young developing team, that can greatly assist the trajectory of this up-and-coming Brooklyn Nets team.
YouTube user says Maxime Renaud and Fleming on the board. I think there's a frozen envelope involved, Bryce. Here's the thing, YouTube user. I'm just setting myself up for heartbreak because we have them on the board here still, and there's no chance they're actually going to last to number 37. It'd be my guess. And guys, at 37, we will go back and we will talk about, hey, would you guys have traded up here? Would you have traded up there? What would you have done? We're just going to save it for the conversation at 37. Matthew says, hey, shout out from your Brazilian handsome friend. He called himself handsome. I did not call him handsome. I am sure he is handsome because in his profile picture, it looks like he's bald just like me. And we are all handsome. O2, what time is it in Brazil?
I couldn't tell you.
I know. All right. Up at number...
Draft time.
Draft time. That's
right.
what time it is.
That's
At
right.
number 27, the Brooklyn Nets are on the board again. Max, you are up, my guy.
Yeah, so I'm going to continue to add to the wing stockpile here.
Let's
I think
go.
with Jeremiah Fears, you don't want to step on his toes. I kind of like what they've got going on from a big man standpoint. You got Nick Claxton, you got Daron Sharp, who I think is one of the more underrated bigs in the league. I like the idea with Jeremiah Fears and Carter Bryant and Daron Sharp as an outlet passer. Maybe we go a little bit more athletic with things here. We get our big wing stopper and we go with Edu Thiero with this pick, who might be a little bit of a reach. I get it. The shot is not great. It's really low volume, but he's a stellar defensive playmaker who can really run the break and get out in transition and go. I think there's a sneaky shot that with how good he is defensively, he can step in and contribute right away. And just sort of add it's a different like transition, grab and go sort of wrinkle to this team.
I love it. Matthew says not bald, LOL, blonde hair. My bad. I'm so sorry, man. I ruined that one. That's really bad. Hey, Kasem, nobody covered the Pistons better than O2 this year. I agree. Couldn't agree more. Edu Thiero, you're breaking Pistons hearts, man. I know this was a name that a lot of people thought could be there at 37 for them. I really like this pick, Max. Really, really nice job. So Edu Thiero off the board now at number 27, which means the Celtics are up at 28. And I'm going to do it, guys. I just think it makes so much sense at 28 with their current situation. I'm going to take Maxime Renaud at 28 for the Boston Celtics. I'm sorry. Steven, is this too early for Maxime Renaud? What are your thoughts?
It depends on who you ask. For me, I think it's okay. I have him. Maxwell knows this too. I'm a little bit lower on him.
Okay.
I don't know how the passing translates really in the NBA. I worry about his defense. He only shot 34% for as a floor spacer. Not as great. Ryan Kalkbrenner actually had a similar efficiency, but on lower volume. But a worthwhile gamble here for Boston because we all know that they value the three-point shot highly within their offensive scheme. That's what he projects to be the best at.
All right, Maxwell, give me something more positive. I should have went to you first.
Yeah, I think with Maxime Renaud, it's like, so I've actually come up on him a little bit over like the last week or so. I feel like all the guys that I miss on are guys that just like posted big counting numbers and big roles. And Maxime Renaud averaged 20 and 10 in the ACC. Like the bottom line is he took a ton of threes. He made them at a decent clip. He moves his feet well enough that if you can pick up some of the low-hanging fruit defensively, you could be looking at one of those dribble pass shoot bigs that can at least survive on defense. And with how many threes Boston likes to shoot, I think he fits from that standpoint alone.
Love it. All right, O2, you finally get to make a selection here. We're at number 29. The Phoenix Suns back on the board. Of course, the trade has happened. They traded for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, number 10, and a plethora of second-round picks, which, I mean, should be noted because Oklahoma City Thunder used 5 second-round picks to trade into the first round to draft Dylan Jones. So 5 second-round picks aren't nothing, but we have taken Cedric Coward already at number 10 for the Suns, O2. So just not saying that it matters a whole lot, but just something to take note. Where are you going to go with this pick?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Rasheer Fleming.
Okay.
I think for one, the Suns could use, a player that's not a shooting guard, and Rasheer Fleming, I think is somebody who's going to, give you some size, whether he's at the 3 or the 4. 7'5" wingspan at his height is just ridiculous. Like, he's going to have one of the longest wingspans in the NBA from day one. Love his athleticism. Love his tools on defense. Shot the 3 really well in his 3rd season. I guess there's still some concerns with the shots if he could be like a high volume guy, but I just think he's a really good like long-term piece for a Phoenix Suns team that again could just really use help at every position.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, their shooting guard position was kind of funny. If you just like go over to Spot Track and look, and it's just like shooting guard, shooting guard, shooting guard, just like across the board. So, Steven, real quick here, please don't break my heart on Rasheer Fleming as well. Are you a fan at all of Rasheer Fleming?
Brother, I have him 11th on my board.
Okay, there we go.
I don't know if his mom's a bigger fan of him than I am. I think that 39% from deep, just like Omari said. Mario gave a great scout, by the way. I'll put in a good word for you at No Ceilings, bro, because, I mean, the defense is there. The toughness is there. The year-over-year improvements. I know Maxwell actually, covered him at a ground level earlier on than a lot of people. He could speak to that development and trajectory a lot more, but he's just doing things this year that we haven't seen.
Maxwell, real quick, can you speak on that?
I mean, it just simply put, the guy's enormous and he knows how to shoot the basketball and he plays really hard. But if you just if you go deep into the tape, the kinds of passes that he made, the things like that, the defensive rotations he was making, those are not plays he was making a few years ago. He's on this great development trajectory, clearly a kid that works really hard. And I think people are getting a little too cute with it, dropping him too far on their boards.
So for Pistons fans, like this may be a precursor to Wednesday, well, I guess it'd be Thursday night, where at one point, whenever we started at 26, things looked really interesting. And then wing floor spacer off the board, athletic wing off the board, stretch big off the board, Rasheer Fleming off the, like all of these guys that we kind of like now are flying off the board. So some names still on the board: Nolan Traore, Noah Pinda. I know Wes is just praying right now. Ben Suraf, Drake Powell, Janai Broom, Alex Tui. We'll continue to move forward here with the final pick of the first round. So then we will get to the actual second round. Big Dog Pistons praying for some Drake Powell here. The Los Angeles Clippers, Steven, what is our final pick of the first round?
I'm going to go Ben Suraf. Now, his fit might be a little funky on this team, but I think that you get a big wing who can handle the ball on a lot of usage. Still playing competitive basketball, I believe, right now, if I'm not mistaken. If not, his season ended very, very, very soon. He sees the floor well. He's got long arms. He's got a good frame. He's got good vision. There's potential that he can give you a lot of what you're getting within the starting lineup on this Clippers team, coming off of the bench and developing on a pretty good time and playing for a heck of a coach too, and Ty Lue.
I love Suraf. I mean, I had him super high on my board at one time. Things dropped because the efficiency just wasn't there. There's some questions about the defense. I think he's definitely a first round prospect for me, potential, whatever. So I love that here for the Clippers. So now we will move into the second round just to give the fan base a little bit of so we got the Wolves up, then the Celtics, back-to-back Hornets picks, Sixers, Nets, and then we will get to the Pistons. When we get to the Pistons, we will war room that selection. We will all have a voice, and then I will be the tiebreaker. No, the comments or something like that can be the tiebreaker when we get there. Max, you are up. First pick of the second round, number 31, Minnesota Timberwolves.
I'm going to go with my guy Noah Penda here.
Yep.
Penda is a guy really smart, really tough, knows how to play basketball, moves the ball super well, lots of event creation defensively. The question with him is just the shot. I think it looks good enough. He takes enough of them that I'm confident in the second round, particularly, that you just kind of bet on that sorting itself out. But I look at the Timberwolves roster. It feels like they're a little thin once you go down the bench, that like 3-4 spot. We haven't quite got what we wanted out of Josh Minot or Leonard Miller yet. I think getting another kind of guy in that mix who's big, strong, tough, but also really smart kind of fits what they could use.
Love it. Yeah, Noah Pinda, a really interesting player. Guys, if you want to know more about these players, I have video breakdowns on most of the guys we're talking about over the last 7 or 8 picks and through the next 7 or 8. And then, of course, No Ceilings has an incredible draft guide that they've put out, along with just like all sorts of articles, which Maxwell and Steven both do an incredible job of, and everybody else over at No Ceilings as well. So all sorts of content to get to know even more about these guys beyond the little 1-2 minute spiels we're giving. I'm back up with the Celtics, actually. So I took the big and Maxime Renault. I will go Nolan Traore here. I just think at the end of the day, he's the best player on my board at 32. I feel like this is great value for Nolan Traore. And, I don't know what his fit, like his playing time, whatever ends up being in Boston, but I'm okay at 32 taking Traore. Max, what were your thoughts on this was a guy that was part of the Big Five 9 months ago, right? When this draft was supposed to be just out of this world. And now, I mean, I don't know if he actually falls in the second round, but he's definitely not that. Like, you don't see a whole lot of Nolan Traore lottery. Why?
Yeah, he just had a really inefficient season. He took on a massive usage role. So, like, if you want to be fair to him, he took on as big of a playmaking burden as just about anybody. And the playmaking is good. He has really sharp recognition. But he just gets bounced around a lot. Came in, I believe, under 180 pounds. Really struggles with physicality. And the jump shot's a huge question. Really struggles with this pull-up. The three has never really been a part of his game. So you're just looking at one of these guys who needs the ball to be effective, but isn't really a disruptor, isn't really a 3-level scorer. And it's tough to play those guys. Like, there's a little, like, you can scare yourself with guys like Alfred Payton in the past, who had that really nice table setter mentality. But if the rest of the firepower is not there, it becomes tough to make that work.
You only have to say 2 words. You're on a Detroit Pistons podcast, Maxwell, and we all know what those 2 words are. The next pick is number 33, the Charlotte Hornets with back-to-back picks, starting with our guy O2. O2, you get to make your pick right after this break.
I'm going to go with a guy that, has gotten the first round grade from, some teams, Drake Powell. Monster athlete. Love his tools on defense. Like, he's about 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan. And the Hornets, I feel like, just need good two-way foundational basketball players. And I think, Drake Powell may be a little bit more of, a long-term prospect in some ways. I don't know if he gives you everything he's capable of day one, but I think long-term, he fits perfectly with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball, assuming those are the core 2 guys going forward. And I just like his upside, and I think this late in the draft, early in the second round, you swing for upside, and he's definitely got it.
Really interesting draft here for the Hornets so far. They got VJ Edgecombe at number 4, defensive player. Here, Drake Powell at 33, defensive player. I don't hate this. Steven, what are your thoughts on Drake Powell at 33? And then as you talk through that, you can go ahead and talk into your pick for the Hornets at number 34.
I like the Hornets leaning into a bit of a defensive identity here. Drake Powell, I had him in my first round for about a week, a little later on in the season. I do worry about the offense, although he did shoot really efficiently on low volume from deep this year at UNC. UNC was a mess. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was once a highly rated recruit. He is since kind of fallen to the detriment of the college that he chose to play for. But the defense is like the swing skill. It could be like NBA ready right off the rip. And if we're going to keep a defensive identity going for this Charlotte Hornets, who really needs one, by the way. I mean, they got offensive talent on this team. Let's add them a guy. Maxwell, you probably guess who I'm going to go with here if we're going for a point guard. Elijah Martin. I think that he could play.
Let's go.
I think that he could play really well on this team, give you another defensive-minded backcourt mate that you can run in different lineups with LaMelo Ball alongside of Brandon Miller. He also shot the ball pretty well, 35% on over 11 threes per 100 possession. A tenacious athlete, plays big, was the 4 at FAU before he transferred to Florida. He is a defensive stalwart. He has way more defensive events created than he did in fouls committed in the talented SEC conference, guarding up the lineup. So he is a very good player off the ball offensively and will pick up the tough defensive assignment in the backcourt on the other end.
Mr. Ray says, I can't believe I almost missed this. Greatness, Maxwell and Stephen G are icons in the draft space. That's actually true. YouTube user.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
How are you going to do game theory in 30 minutes, Bryce? YouTube user, not only do we have a mock draft on game theory, I'm hoping Sam's in a talkative mood, so I just have to say a few words here and there. But then we have to record the offseason previews after that for the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. So this is 3.5 straight hours of podcasting, which I will not complain because there can be worse things than getting to do a podcast with you 3 gentlemen and on the Game Theory podcast. So we are at number 35. Let's set the table a little bit, guys. Janai Broom, Alex Tui, Hansen Yang, Cam Jones, Markovich, Kobe Brea, Niederhauser, Kobe Sanders, Chaz Lanier. the list has shrunk. And again, I hope maybe that we aren't giving you a precursor, Pistons fans, of getting excited on the start of day 2. And then we'll talk through the names once we actually get there. But Max, Philadelphia at 35.
I'm going to go with Janai Broom here.
Okay.
So Janai Broom, yes, what he is he a power forward? Is he a center? He's a good basketball player. The bottom line is he's super productive, absolutely stuffed the stat sheet at Auburn this past year. Why I like him particularly in Philadelphia is this is a team that has really struggled on the glass the last few seasons. He's going to add that to their team. He's also like a really stellar passer. It's really rare for a big man to have an assist rate pushing 20 and to do that with so few turnovers. He's dynamite out of the short roll. I think there's a chance that safety valve, like pick and pop 3, gets there at a certain point when guys sag on him. But even then, if he's not a floor spacer, this is a lineup where you can play him next to Joel Embiid. There's defensive insulation. There's shooting all around him. If you're worried about him scoring efficiently at the next level, that can sort of allow him to be more of an orchestrator, a DHO operator. I love Janai Broom. I think he's one of those guys that's just good enough at basketball that he's going to figure it out. And I think a team like Philly could use the rebounding, some playmaking out of the center spot, and some additional big man depth.
Love it. Steven, quick thoughts on Janai Broom.
Also love him. I think Max will hit all of the nails on every one of their heads. I just think that, positional playmaking, rebounding, he played a lot tougher earlier on in his college career, slimmed down quite a bit, and became more of a finesse guy. So we've seen him succeed in multiple different looks at multiple locations. I love the pick for Philadelphia. They get a ready-to-contribute guy in the second round.
Okay, so ultimately this is why Pistons fans are here, but we're at pick 36. We got one more name off the board, and then we will war room. I want to do this a little bit fairly because there's a name I kind of want to leave on the board, but so the Nets have taken 4 first-round picks, guys. They have taken Carter Bryant, Jeremiah Fears, Liam McNeely, Adu Thiero. I think we can essentially go anywhere with this pick at 36. Ultimately, they probably don't end up taking 5 rookies. I just want to see who is the number 1 player on our boards, because I would just say hey, this is best player available, whether they take it or whatever. So, Steven, who would be your BPA if we just went straight BPA right here?
Cam Jones.
Okay. Max?
Oh, man. I think my highest ranked guy on the board is actually Victor Locken.
Okay.
Who is the guy that I'm really bullish on and I kind of think would fit this team a little bit. But he's injured. And I think teams are always skeptical of guys when they're injured. But I like him. I like Brea.
Oh, too, you don't necessarily have a board. Do you have a favorite name that's on the board right now, though?
I like Chaz Lanier.
Okay.
I've said it on the pod before, but just guaranteed skill that's always going to be useful, and he's got decent size and athleticism too.
Great human.
He's a solid pick there, really solid pick, safe pick. Could potentially fill a role for you.
All right, this didn't work because I have Alex Tui. So 4 people, 4 different names. I did wonder about just giving them another big. Maxwell, you mentioned, they have Nick Claxton. You and I are both big fans of Day'Ron Sharpe. You mentioned that earlier. But what do we think here about Hansen Yang or Niederhauser? I'm going to go big. Steven, give me the big that you would take if I said it has to be a big. It can be any of them. Zakarsky, Markovic, whoever. You give me the name that you like if I say I want to go a bigger player.
It's razor thin. They're separated just by 1 player, but I'm going to go Hansen Yang as my top guy. And I think that if the Nets are looking to build long-term, he's got the highest upside.
Okay. Maxwell?
Out of the bigs, I still kind of want to go with my guy Locken just because I think he does.
Okay, we're not taking Locken. Go to the next.
Okay. All right. In that case, I'll go Yannick. I think he's just very obvious in terms of he can run a dunk and block shots, and that's fine. I think he's going to be an innings eater, and I think you can live with that in the second round.
0-2, Yannick, Niederhauser, or Hansen Yang?
I'm more familiar with Yannick, and again, he's just a massive dude. Especially in that range where you're probably looking at guys who can fill a specific role. He just screams backup center. I like his skill set.
Okay, I was gonna go Hansen Yang, so this didn't work either.
Oh, boy.
Wes, please break the tie. Hansen Yang or Yannick Conan Niederhauser? Hansen Yang it is.
Woo!
So
Hey.
Brooklyn Nets will go Hansen Yang. Steven, give us the quick pitch on Hansen Yang here for the Nets before we get to Detroit.
Has the upside to be a top 20 player in this class. The NBA is built on outliers. Hanson Yang is one of those guys. His league didn't really do him any favors with how he was scouted. Once he was in a room with his peers, he dominated in a lot of areas. He has playmaking potential at the 5. He has the ability to potentially shoot from outside. His footwork looked a lot better, blocking Sion James on a 3 and defending other guys like Micah Peavy out in space. I just think, again, very young, a lot of upside. Brooklyn Nets could have a potential top 20 return in a Hanson Yang.
So Wes just goes, that was going to be my Pistons pick. Should have lied. I will say this, guys. I think we have done a very good job of being very honest with this draft and not trying to cherry pick it to make
cater.
Cater to it. Yeah, because that would have been very easy to do, and we did not do it at all. So quick refresher. Since this recording started, Liam McNeely at 26, Adou Thiero 27, Maxime Renault, Rashir Fleming, Ben Suraf, Noah Pinda, Nolan Traore, Drake Powell, Elijah Martin, Janai Broom, Hanson Yang, all off the board. That leaves us with a bunch of names: Alex Tui, Yannick, who we mentioned earlier, Cam Jones, Proctor, Brea, Lanier, Rocco Zikarsky. We are going to war room this, and then we will make a selection after the break. We'll talk through it. We'll talk, would we have traded up somewhere, all of that. And then we'll make a few more picks just so people kind of know. All right. O2, let's start with you, actually. Where would you go with this? What's going through your process? Who are you considering?
Yeah, I would go with Chaz Lanier. Again, I think you just look at the Pistons' rotation and long term. I think there's still a need for shooting in the backcourt, and he's one of the highest floor shooters in the draft. He was a 4 or 5 year guy in college. I don't want to say he's probably more one dimensional, but I don't know if he's going to come in and be able to be a secondary playmaker or anything like that. I think he's big enough and athletic enough to hold his own defensively, and you want guys who are going to play off of Cade Cunningham anyway. So with the Pistons, just with their roster makeup, even Duren taking a step forward as a playmaker this past season, I think you could get away with having a guy like Chaz Adair who's just going to come in and knock down as many threes as he can. So just a really good fit, and I like the idea of getting a player that brings a guaranteed NBA skill from day one.
Couple thoughts from the comments. YouTube user says we're trading up, so need to cherry pick this low-hanging fruit. Matt Welch says trade the pick. YouTube user says draft and stash Rocco. And Mr. Ray wants us to take Micah Peavy. So, Steven, where is your thought process right now with what's on the board?
I kind of like the idea that Omari is rolling with, but I would want to go with a bigger guy who could do the same things, which is why I would want to go with Kobe Brea, who has... Look, listen, I love Chaz. I actually just interviewed him the other day. I'm a big fan, but I just think that Kobe has a lot more utility, could play probably one more position than Chaz Lanier because of the height and length, has been an upper echelon collegiate shooter for several seasons. So I think that he can space the floor just like Chaz, but just gives you some more size. And I think that could be valuable for what the Pistons are building.
Maxwell, where are you at with this pick?
Yeah, I think the process is great ultimately so far. I look at the Pistons roster and it just seems like the guys who kind of just shoot for them are guys that aren't going to be around longer or don't really fit the timeline or older. I'm with Steven. I kind of like Kobe Brea here. I think with Lanier, I'd wanted to be in so bad, and I feel like he just doesn't leverage his athleticism all that well. He's not much of a playmaker. With Brea, I at least have that second wrinkle that gets me a little bit closer to an AJ Green, where I feel like the number of pure shooting specialists that are 6'4" and below is really small. With Brea, I've got that little bit of extra size, and I've got that playmaking wrinkle downhill that gives me a little bit something else that I can lean into. With both these guys, we're not talking about the best defenders, but I think with Brea, he's got a longer track record of shooting and making, I think, more threes more consistently. And I'm just a bigger buyer in the passing. And I think that with the defensive insulation that Detroit has in their young core, he can kind of get away with being a negative defender a little bit more here.
Stevie J says Brea or Marco or maybe Proctor. Let me ask you guys this real quick. Just one word answer. Who is the better defender, Kobe Brea or Chaz Lanier?
Kobe Brea.
Yes, about as unconfident as Maxwell on that.
Yeah, the least amount of confidence I've ever had.
Let me ask you guys.
Bigger.
Let me ask you this: who is the better shooter between Kobe Brea and Chaz Lanier?
Kobe Brea.
Kobe Brea.
Okay. Wes says Markovic would be his vote, and then Zakarski as a dark horse. So I do want to touch on these guys real quick. Steven, you take whichever one you want, Markovic or Zakarski, and give us the pitch.
It's going to be hard for me to be super positive. I'm sorry, Bryce. Markovic, the best that we've heard about him all year is when he went to Hoop Summit and played against high schoolers. So he kind of scares me in that regard. But he is big and he can dribble. He's very, very thin, though. I don't know how much more realistically you can expect him to get bigger and stronger. I know that he will. I just don't know about how much. It's tough. He's a really tough prospect for me, man. We do have some people at No Ceilings that are probably screaming if they're listening that he slid this far in the draft, though.
Max, Rocco Zakarski.
Yeah, so Zakarski to me is one of those guys where the draft is just a little early for him. Like, I think he just needs some time to kind of fill out his frame and get used to banging bodies with pro dudes. But the bottom line is he's 7'3", he's enormous, and there's not a lot of guys that are 7'3" that move their feet as well as him. So if a team wants to use a stash pick on him, I kind of love that. I think if he's a guy that you want to bring over right away, it could get a little bit dicey. I don't think the G League is the best environment for developing bigs, just because there's so few real ones down there. It's a lot of like undersized fives that are really like power forwards who can't shoot. So I don't know how much it would help him, but if you could convince him to take a stash deal, I think Zakarski could have real value in the second round because he is so big and has that fluidity to him.
Okay, I'm going to throw another name in the hat. And I think Yannick Conan Niederheiser is a real interesting pick here as well.
Totally.
I'm going to throw Alex Tui in the mix for me, though. If I had to make a pick here, it would be Alex Tui. Alex Tui is actually the best player on my board. Max, Steven, give your quick. Sion James is another interesting name as well. Comments. We are going to go with Tui, Lanier, Brea, and we are going to let you guys decide. So Wes, we'll try to keep some sort of running total over there. So if you're watching live, now is your chance to get your vote in over the next couple minutes while we talk through Alex Tui a little bit. We could go to break, come back, talk trade ups, make sure everybody gets a chance. So Alex Tui, Kobe Brea, Micah Peavy's not an option, Mr. Ray. We love you, but he's not an option. Alex Tui, Kobe Brea, Chaz Lanier. Those are your guys' options here. Trajan Langdon has made a decision. Maxwell, Alex Tui, thoughts?
Yeah, just like a really solid player. One of the guys who came into the combine and was actually the size that they said they were at 6, like just a hair under 6'8", has a big wingspan at 6'11". Really just sharp player. Like mentally, he's thinking the game at the level that you need to think it at. He moves the ball really quickly. He knows how to respond to a closeout. Defensively, he's always in the right spots. He uses his frame well. I think with Tui, the question has always just been like, is he a shooter? Because he will take threes. And even at the combine, like he hit a deep three behind the line. There's a good pop time on it. It gets off quickly. But then you look at the percentages and they've just never been there. And he's getting to a point where I believe he's like 22 at this point. So it's like, man, you're a little old for like an if he shoots it guy. But I think there's just a baseline level of like size, toughness, and processing that's there that he's definitely worth a stab at some point in the second round.
Love it. Steven, your quick thoughts.
He could be like a funky TJ McConnelly player, but as a wing player, if that makes sense, right? Like hustle is always on, motor's always on. TJ McConnell, sub 35% shooter for his career, sub 6'4", still effective all the way up until the finals of this year. Tui could give you a lot of those same types of vibes, but just for his position, because he's going to defend hard, he's going to rebound hard, he's going to make hard cuts, he's going to make the right pass. Even if he misses his shot, he'll probably go and follow it and try to get it and put it back in anyway. So he's going to be a high-end effort, energy, hustle guy, which I think fits a lot of what the Pistons have with some of their other young players.
Love it. All right, we're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we are going to talk trade up scenarios for the Pistons. Would you guys have looked to make a move at any spot? Omari, you can give the name that you would have traded up for right after we come back from this short break.
We're going to talk about potential trade-up targets for the Pistons. Just some background on that. One thing that Trajan mentioned right after the offseason was just the talent pool being a little bit more shallow with more guys going back to school with NIL. So he did mention the possibility of maybe the guy he wanted isn't going to be there at 37, and they've got some future second-round picks they could play with. So with all of that said, like I would go with the pick I made for the Suns earlier, Rasheer Fleming. Like I think he checks a lot of boxes for the Pistons as a guy who can potentially switch 3 through 5. He gives them a lot of athleticism. He gives them defensive production. He can knock down shots. And like I just like his game. I like his game. Like I think he's absolutely a rotation forward at minimum. And like that's a guy to me that's worth giving up, some future second round picks for, if that's what it takes to get it done.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Pistons fans know this. Rasheer Fleming and Maxime Renault are the guys that I would not give up a future first round pick to move into the first round. But if it was just seconds, which I believe the Pistons do have a plus in terms of how many they have, I would be more than comfortable with that. Steven, is there a name for you? Not Rasheer Fleming, not Maxime Renault. Can't go up to like 20 and use a first round pick, but just something that could get you seconds. Maybe even if you wanted to, Marcus Sasser or something like that. A name that would be interesting to you.
Yeah, I think with Jace Richardson being available where Orlando took him, I think this could be kind of fun because Jace gives you ready-made shooting. He's smaller, but he's got long arms, and I think that he did show some defensive chops as well. So you got a guy who knows how to play pro NBA bloodline, and I think too that the Magic would benefit from adding more cost-controlled assets to their draft chest, especially considering how much they had to move to bring in a Desmond Bane. So I think it makes sense on both parts. And again, you just have someone who can reliably shoot and kind of secondary, maybe tertiary play make within certain lineups for Detroit. And again, he showed that he can play solid defense too. So even though he's a smaller guy, and plus, I mean, there's the in-state tie-in, that's all fun too. But I just think that would be a fun fit.
Do you think that the Magic could be the team that the Pistons like deliberately trade up with? Because I'm kind of looking at how the board sits right now, and I'm wondering if I'm Orlando and I'm seeing like, okay, I want shooting out of the guard spot specifically. I'm going to have to pay a bunch of guys a bunch of money in a few years.
Yeah.
Maybe I save some money, and instead of taking Jace, I take Cam Jones or Tyrese Proctor or Javon Small or one of these other point guards like a bit later and roll the dice on that and get an extra asset that maybe I can package in a trade.
Yeah, that's the logic.
Like that's kind of what I'm thinking is like it just that's the team I'd be looking to make a move with.
That makes a lot of sense because of how expensive they are all of a sudden after that trade. And I mean, they were going to get expensive anyway. So yeah, that was really, really interesting idea there. All right, we're getting close to making a pick here at 37 or a decision. Maybe we all decide like, hey, we'll just trade out of this. But Maxwell, number 30, or excuse me, who would you trade up for if you had the opportunity to?
Yeah, if I'm trading up into that range, it's probably for Rasheer. I do still like the idea of Penda quite a bit here. I think that he's just a little bit different in terms of like the pace and size at the forward spot than what Detroit has going on, because it's a lot of like leaner, more athletic guys or bigs. So I kind of like Penda as a trade up target.
Love it. I know that's Wes's guy. Really interesting player. Wes asking the chat, is Liam McNeely worth trading up for? He was taken with one of the Nets picks. That's obviously a scenario where Pistons fans are always looking at, where Brooklyn has those back-to-back picks. What did you guys, is Liam McNeely worth that? We'll always talk about, Steven, you've referenced it twice now. Floor spacing. I know this isn't a rebuilding Pistons team, but it's still an ascending team that hasn't got to where they need to go yet. Adding floor spacing and someone like McNeely could make sense.
I like the idea of him going to a team that doesn't need him to be the shooter that he's projected to be. And if he doesn't, it doesn't hinder the team's long-term future like the Brooklyn Nets. For Detroit, who has continued playoff aspirations, I would be a little bit more hesitant trading up assets and looking at a guy who's like, yeah, sure, he was supposed to be a shooter. We see this often in the draft. Not everyone is who we think that they are going to be moving forward. I would be hesitant if I'm Detroit looking to continue to ascend, trading up, investing more capital in a guy that wasn't great at the thing he's projected to be good at.
All right. It's probably time to go ahead and make a pick. I think Rasheer Fleming is just, he makes so much sense for the roster and where it's at, and the talent, especially if he falls into range to do this. So Wes says the chat only gave us a 2-2 Kobe Brea versus Alex Tui. I put out a quick Twitter poll. Alex Tui is winning that. Chaz Lanier is second. Kobe Brea is third. 0-2. This is half of your podcast. Technically, it's a third of your podcast because Wes owns a third as well. None of us own a third, actually. The Free Press owns all of it. But 0-2, I will let you decide. Are you going to stick with Chaz Lanier, or are you going to listen to our draft experts from No Ceilings, the comments, Twitter, or are you just going to go rogue and stay with Lanier? Do what you want. It's your podcast.
I feel like that's enormous responsibility.
It is.
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I'm going to stick with Chaz Lanier.
Let's go.
Stick with Chaz Lanier.
I
Stick to your
love
guns.
it.
Got to
Love
do it.
Chaz Lanier. Maxwell, give us the 30-second pitch on what Detroit's getting here.
Yeah, Chaz Lanier is a nuclear shooter. You're getting a guy who's really quick, who can get that off-ball separation, can hit threes from the parking lot if you need him to.
Steven, Chaz Lanier.
Ditto. Just good floor spacer, reliable, good human, very committed to just continuing to improve and being there for his teammates.
Love it. All right, so let's finish out this mock real quick here. The final 3 picks. The San Antonio Spurs are up. I guess I need to make this pick for the Detroit Pistons. Chaz Lanier right there. San Antonio Spurs are now up at 38. Steven, where are you going to go with the Spurs?
Yannick Hauser just gives his team such a dynamic look on the defensive end. Him and Wemby, if Yannick hits on all cylinders, my goodness, that would be a terrifying front court to go up against. Let's not get too cute, and let's go with the big man here.
Love it. Yannick Niederhauser from Penn State to the Spurs. Maxwell, you are up at 39 with the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, I feel like they've done the shooting specialist thing a little bit with guys like Brian Ochai-Agbaji, Grady Dick recently. I think
Jacoby Walter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'd look to go a little bit more balanced with my approach, and I'm going to go with Jameer Watkins here.
Bro,
who's a guy,
no, you are not. That was literally my pick.
Yeah, he's sort of like a sneaky good spot up shooter. Like I was running the numbers the other day. He's like over the last 3 years, he's like 42% on like plain spot up threes. Can move the ball well enough. Really good defender, especially at the point of attack. Has some warts. He's got to work out. Never been the best downhill finisher. Inconsistent as a playmaker. But I look at the bones of what Jameer Watkins is, and I like it.
Love it. Sean Haddock says 0-2 will get cooked forever if we draft Chaz Lanier and he sucks. Yes, you guys all remember this. We all wanted Kobe Brea, and I'm going to finish off this draft at number 40. The Washington Wizards are going to take Alex Tui right here to finish off. Again, guys, this is 1 through 40. If you want to go back and see how we made those selections, we give quick spiels on all of that. You will be able to find that on the Detroit Free Press YouTube channel. Later in the week, that'll all be out there, but we thought this would be a fun activity. Again, we knocked out those first 25, came in at 26, and got you a little opportunity to see what the draft may play out like. I honestly think this is what's going to happen on Thursday, where when the draft starts on Thursday, Pistons fans are going to be really excited about 5 names that are on the board, and all 5 names are going to go off in the next 6 picks, but maybe not. You never know. Maxwell, before we get out of here real quick, just give me one thought on the draft overall that's coming up on Wednesday or Thursday. Like, what's your big takeaway or theme or something?
Yeah, I am fascinated to see how this first round plays out, because I feel like there's a lot less consensus once you get past like 12. And I think there might be some really surprising guys that fall into the second. I think we could get a really chaotic second day because of that. It just seems a little too quiet and a little too volatile for as late in the process as we are, that I think it's going to be a very fun process. I know a lot of people have like slandered the depth of this class, and I get it. Pistons are still in a good spot. There's still going to be plenty of talent on the board when they pick. and I wouldn't write off like a way better player than you might expect being available when it's their turn to make the selection.
Love it. That's the way to bring it back positive. I appreciate you. O2, for what it's worth, the Twitter poll now has strongly Chaz Lanier in the lead. So you must have quote tweeted it and told everybody to vote for him. O2 has a way bigger following. I did see that you retweeted it, but you didn't give any instructions, so people don't know. Steven, your big takeaway. What can fans in general look for on Wednesday and Thursday night?
Probably a lot of trades, man. I mean, we've been talking about it for the most part leading up to the draft. I mean, we just saw the number 10 pick get traded for a big-time star. Giannis Antetokounmpo may not be on the move, so I think there's going to be a lot of stargazing on top of just a very fun draft process. Maxwell said outside of 12 is where it gets crazy. I don't know. Like, there's people that love Jeremiah Fears, and there's people that can't stand his guts. I mean, like I said, that 7, 8, 9 range is really going to set the tone for the rest of the draft. Whoever goes 7, 8, 9, it could be wild for the rest of the day for some prospects in particular.
I'll just keep one-upping you guys. I think it's going to get crazy at 3. Like, I'm just ready for fireworks at 3 with a trade or something like that. So, real quick, before we let these guys shout their stuff out, guys, I'm about to go on Game Theory and do a full first-round mock. So if you guys want to come over and check that out, that will be going live. I think it says 8:15 Eastern, so it'll be like 8:45, knowing Sam because he's always late. But I will be on time. So check that out. And then the Thunder and the Pacers offseason previews, the final 2 will come out tomorrow. Steven, let us know, let the viewers know, the watchers know where they can find you, No Ceilings, everything that's going on. Maxwell, you take it after that.
Bryce, Omari, Wes, thank y'all so much for having the Draft Sickos on, man. It's always a pleasure when we could come on and chop it up with such smart and handsome people such as yourself. So thank y'all for having us. For you want to follow No Ceilings, you could do that best at NoCeilingsNBA.com, where we got links to all of our stuff. We got big boards, we got mock drafts, we got videos of our war rooms available for No Ceilings Plus members. You subscribe to No Ceilings Plus, you get a discount on our draft guide that just dropped. It's available for $15. If you're a Plus member, you get it for only 10. So consider that whenever you're considering the draft guide. No Ceilings NBA on YouTube. Our channel is booming. We're trying to be like you and Sam. We're trying to be like y'all and have our channel continue to boom, man. But we've had a lot of fun so far this year. And again, anytime we get to chop it up with y'all gentlemen, it's always a pleasure.
Maxwell?
Yeah, for sure. Everything Steven said. Buy the draft guide. It's like 300 pages here. We've got 100 players, tons of insight on all of them, strengths, weaknesses, player comps, all that jazz. You can follow me at Boundboards. I just read about Jace Richardson today. That's a guy that is interesting. Didn't get a green room invite. Had a phenomenal year. I know we got a lot of Michigan area people listening to this pod. So go read my thoughts on Jace Richardson and what his next level translation could look like.
Appreciate it, guys. It was a lot of fun. Always like having you on. Glad we did it again this year. O2, take it away, my guy.
Again, always a pleasure to have you guys on. Everybody, make sure you check out No Ceilings and support their draft content leading up to Wednesday and Thursday. And with that, big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Dakota Avery Nichols, and big shout out to Wes Davenport, as always. And we'll talk to you all next week.